Now, suppose the entire world is using gold coins as money. Historically, it was actually silver that emerged first, and then gold only came in later. And the only real advantage gold has over silver is that it's even more precious. The historical ratio was typically 16 ounces of silver had the same value as 1 ounce of gold, which meant that if you were paying for a big shipload of imports, you only had to send back 1 shipload of gold instead of 16 shiploads of silver. I guess that would be more than 1 boatload of goods, but whatever how many boatloads of goods it was, it's not as bulky to pay in gold. So suppose the whole world is on a gold coin standard. And that's basically the situation in Europe in the Middle Ages. If you're the king of a country that's using gold coins, you always wanted to fight wars. That was what European governments did in those days. Where are you going to get the money to pay the soldiers? Well, what they discovered, and actually they discovered this early on, back in ancient times, the Greeks and Romans discovered this, it's profitable to have a monopoly on the production of coins. And that's why governments took over the mints. It's not that private industry couldn't do it, it's that if you have a monopoly, you get a monopoly profit. What's the evidence that private firms can do it? Well, they have done it. If you go today, buy a bar of pure silver bullion, you don't buy it from a government, you buy it from the Engelhard Minerals Corporation of Switzerland, or some other corporation that stamps on it, this is 1 ounce of gold, 0.999 pure. Right? People trust their certification. They're basically in the certification business. And if they produced a bar of gold that was only half gold, or right, it was lead in the middle and they just painted it gold and said, look, here's a bar of gold. When they get found out, their whole business vanishes. So we already, still today, rely on private certification, but back when it was allowed, coins were produced by private firms. In the US, there was a big gold discovery in California in 1849. Very quickly, there were about a dozen private mints set up around the gold fields. So if you're a gold miner, you're coming out with gold dust. It's hard to spend gold dust. Here's one of the jokes that you wanted me to leave in. The gold miners would go, when they went drinking, anybody seen the TV series Deadwood? It's kind of a picture of life in a gold mining camp. You go into the bar with a bag of gold dust. You put the bag in front of you to show that you can pay for the drinks. And the price of a shot of whiskey was 1 pinch of gold dust. Right? So you put a pile of gold dust in front of you, you order a shot of whiskey, the bartender comes along and pinches off the payment. Well, some bars were accused of hiring bartenders just based on the size of their thumbs. So that's a problem. The pinch is not really a natural unit. You need something a little more precise than that. So if you took your gold dust to a guy who had a mint, a guy who turned sort of standardized coins out of it, which he certified were a certain purity and weight, you have a lot less hassles. You're a lot less likely to get into a gunfight. So coinage saves a lot of hassle in evaluating the quality of money. People are willing to pay for that service, so it's feasible, and there's experience of having competing private mints, but governments saw that that's a big source of profit. So a government mint can charge people a big fee for turning their raw material into coins. Now, if they charge too high a price, they're going to drive people away. They're going to go to some other mint. But if you're the government, you can say, no, you can't go to any other mint. In Spain, where they were bringing all the gold and silver from the New World, right? Remember the Spanish conquerors who came here and looted all the gold and silver they could find. And when that ran out, they took over the mines. All the gold and silver that went back to Spain was required by the Spanish government to go to the Spanish mint. Right? The explorer with the boatload of silver or gold, or conqueror or looter, couldn't shop around for the best deal. He had to go to the Spanish government mint and had to pay the price that they were charging for that service. So that's one source of profit. But there's another source of profit if you're sneaky about it. Somebody didn't hear the announcement. The other source of profit is you take in an ounce of gold and you mint 2 coins out of it, and each coin says this is 1 ounce of gold. It's a fraud, right? It's a lie. It's debasement. You put a lot of non-gold in it, tin or copper or something cheaper, and then try to pass it off as a 1 ounce gold coin. Now what happens when people find out about that? Well, they're not going to treat it the same as a 1 ounce coin. Unless you're the government, then you pass a law that says you have to treat it the same. But what do you suppose happens if you tell people when you sell something you have to accept a ½ ounce gold coin as the equivalent of a 1 ounce gold coin? What's going to happen to the prices they charge? They're going to double. So this is a recipe for inflation, but it does boost the profits of the mint. So it's for revenue motives that governments took over the issue of coins. And it was only a few steps from monopolizing the issue of coins to central banks, which monopolized the issue of paper money. But let me talk about the steps in between. Oh, but first I wanted to say, if you're the king of a country where the money is gold coins and you want to pay your soldiers, you want to be concerned that you have enough gold or silver stockpiled. And there's a whole school of advisors to the king who have become known by the name of mercantilists. So a mercantilist is somebody who's speaking on behalf of mercantile interests, trader interests, merchant interests. And if you're a merchant and you can persuade the government to take this advice, you want the government to encourage exports of goods, so pay us a bounty in order to export goods to the rest of the world. And you want to get the government to discourage imports. Right? If we're trying to sell goods to our citizens, we don't want to have to compete with producers in other countries who might be able to produce more cheaply and undersell us. So mercantilism means restrict trade in the following way: encourage people to export, discourage people from importing. And if you can do that, if you can constantly sell more goods to the rest of the world than you buy from the rest of the world, then the world is paying you on net in gold and silver coin. You start piling up coins. And the theory was that, well, now you can pay your mercenaries, pay your army. But there's a flaw in this argument, and the argument was made on the grounds that, if you don't stop the gold from leaving the country, if you just let people buy whatever they want, you'll run out of gold. It'll just all drain out of the country. Famous early economist and philosopher, actually, David Hume, wrote an essay in 1749, so this is how long back this issue goes, in which Hume exploded the mercantilist doctrine. He said, look, this is silly. And here's the way he argued it. He said, suppose in England we wake up in the morning and we've got half as many silver coins as we had the night before. Right? So let's suppose silver coins are the one kind of money in the economy. Half as much money as we had the night before. What's going to happen? Well, people are going to say, wow, I can't afford to buy as much as I did yesterday. They're going to start buying less, and they're going to try to sell more in order to replenish their money balances, which are now small. If everybody's trying to sell and few people are trying to buy, prices are going to come down. Right? So it's going to put downward pressure on local prices. But Hume said, look, this is going to solve the problem. Because when local prices fall, now our goods are cheap to the rest of the world. The rest of the world is also using silver coins. They're going to start buying our stuff. And as they buy our stuff, it's going to bring silver in. And prices are only going to be depressed as long as it takes for enough silver to come in that everybody's back to having the amount of money they want to hold. Right? So the inflow of silver is a symptom that there wasn't enough. And it fixes the problem. It relieves the shortage or scarcity of silver. Right? So it's a self-regulating mechanism where if you don't have enough money, it'll flow in from the rest of the world. And the flip side is, you wake up in the morning and you got twice as many coins, you got more than you want to hold, you're going to spend off the excess, money's going to burn a hole in your pocket. That's going to drive local prices up until now you have trouble selling to the rest of the world because your prices are high. And imports are going to be a bargain, so you're going to buy more imports. To pay for them, you got to export the coin, and so the excess money will flow out. And the outflow of money is a symptom that you had too much money, and it fixes it. It relieves the surplus of money. but it doesn't flow out forever as the mercantilist view.